Good afternoon, I am Pete, also known as Risk for Rewards, or over on Twitter known as at Risk for Rewards. Currently got about 18,000, just shy of 18,500 followers on Twitter, and just under 1,500 here on YouTube. So it's good going on YouTube. We didn't really set up till just before Cheltenham started putting proper videos and content up regularly. So we've gained about 1,000 followers in 4 weeks. So it's going good guns. So I appreciate the support for everyone who follows, likes, subscribes. If you haven't already subscribed, if you click the link at the bottom, it just means that my any of my videos or anything that I put up content wise will come up on your stream straight away. Rather than waiting until I put it on Twitter or something like that, if I remember to, and you follow the link through. It's easy to do. You just log on to YouTube then, and it will come up with all my videos whenever they're uploaded straight away. So we are here to talk about the Aintree Grand National. Obviously, anyone who follows on Twitter will know that it was a pretty good result. I'm not going to stand here and tell you how glorious and all the works because it's not really how I do things. But I will have one small bit of gloating in the fact that I've got the thing here, and it was the 17th of October 2022 when the Grand National plan was hatched and released. And that was, of course, Corach Rambler at 33 to 1. You could have boosted it on William Hill at the time to 36 to 1, and I did a fair few times. I put it up on Twitter, put my reasoning for it, explained to everyone why. I even put in the thing, I'm sure everyone thinks I'm bonkers and mad putting up a Grand National horse like 8 months in advance, when obviously no one else is really looking at that race. I don't know why. I'd plotted it out since the Ultima the year before. It just looked an absolute standout after that effort in March, and he was very raw that time. Same mark as Noble Yates, and I just thought if they can keep that mark, campaigning well, and obviously Lucinda Wrestle did everything to perfection. And then he had such a strong chance, and obviously everything. It's one of those. And I know a lot of people saw my video on Twitter, and a lot of people said it was quite a strong reaction. But it's not just about the money, is it? It's the fact that you've picked one out, you've laid it out, you've chipped away at it each week, and just thought this could be like a really big run. Put it in a few roll ups, but it's also about the fact that the Grand National itself, whether you try and do it on the night before, whether you try and do it 9 months before, it's a puzzle and a half to get right. And even if you do get it bang on, like we saw the carnage in that first circuit, I could have had Corach Rambler, but he could have been wiped out at any point in that race, and then you would have never known anyway. You could be going into next year's race saying, "Oh, could he win it next year?" But obviously his chance may have gone because obviously it'd be £10 higher. So just because you've got everything right, you still need all the stars to line up, and you also need the training to deliver to perfection, which is exactly what the Connections did, and obviously the jockey. I mean, that was some ride from Derek Fox, absolute balls of steel. But it's exactly what you expected him to do on Kite Rambler. He's a brilliant jockey, and he just suits the horse down to the ground, and they just rode the race to perfection. Um, I don't think there's any excuses. Well, obviously there's fallers and all sorts of stuff, but you could run that race, in my opinion, 10 times, and bar obviously him getting taken down, fallen, hampered, stuff like that, I find it very difficult to see how he wouldn't win. I think he probably could have won with more weight on his back. He could have won with an even more patient ride. I just think he just went so far clear and then he idled. And would you write him off at 20 to 1 for next year's? I wouldn't. I'd probably have just a couple of quid just to get the ball rolling. Obviously, I'm not going to chip into him like I did last year, because obviously the explanation was the fact he was on the same mark as Noble Yates, and we've seen how hard Noble Yates found it off £19 higher, even factoring in for his improvement. So would I say he can't do it? No, definitely not. Was it worth rolling a couple of quid off the back of his win? Yeah, of course it was. Am I going to plot away with him? No, I'm not. But I am going to go looking for obviously the next one for the National. But you've got to keep your boys on side. Anyway, enough of me, because no one really cares unless, well, I hope you all backed it for the National, whether it was at 12 to 1 on the day, whether it was at 33 to 1 when I said about it, or whether it was 21 to 4, or in your 50 to 1 doubles at Cheltenham, the Ultima and the thing. However you backed it, I just hope you had a great day on Saturday. Hope you had a few winners. And it's just brilliant as well because it's one for the family. Like people like your mums, your dads, any family member or a friend. They're like, oh, I'm going to have £1 on this one. And you just bump into people and everyone's so grateful when they win the National. They're just over the moon. It's just that race that a lot of people know nothing about racing, but they just wanted to cheer something on. And to see your horse, especially as he rode it so well. Anyway, I digress anyway. People have come here to listen about the Aintree review and find out where these horses may go with regard to Cheltenham and my opinion or any views I've got going forward. So I'll try to keep this as short as possible. And we'll kick off straight away with obviously day one, which was the Thursday. And that was the Manifesto Novices Chase. Won by Banbridge. St. Roy finishing second. I'm not going to go through obviously all my selections, like as in say, oh, I had the winner of this or that, because it's not really relevant to obviously what people want to know going forwards. Banbridge, good win on the day. Prime example of Aintree form in the fact that came here fresh, got his good ground, was here to peak, and just did bang, bang, bang. St. Roy, another admirable race. I thought that this I think was the plan. I think they knew they weren't going to win the Arkle with the likes of the Dynamos, the El Fabiolos, John Bonds, so they didn't ride him as if he was all out for that race. Whereas I think this they were thinking we'll go for it proper. And as you see so many times, Stage Star just throw the run in the bin just because it's just not his run. Obviously, he'll come back next year and he'll be a much better horse. I think the jury's still not out for me on Stage Star. I just think I've never really warmed to the horse. Like, I think he's a good horse, but he's not you can't say he's not a Group 1 horse, because obviously he took a Group 1 when winning at Cheltenham. But that race obviously is not falling to pieces, but it's not looking good so far. It'll be interesting to see how Not Long Till May gets on the weekend at Ayr, because you look at obviously the likes in behind her appreciates it. James de Burleigh, the unfortunate Mighty Potter, stuff like that, and it's not exactly looking like spectacular form. But regardless, Stage Star, just throw the race. Banbridge just showed that obviously he is Group 1 class at 2 mile 4 furlongs. He just enjoys quick ground and a bit of a break between his races. Where does he go from here? I think many people will say he's a Ryanair horse. Me personally, he could be a Ryanair horse, like as in a player, but I just think Ryanair, you often get a lot of the Champion Chase cast-offs, a lot of the Gold Cup cast-offs, but you normally have at least one or two like classy acts, like the likes of a Shishkin. I know obviously it didn't happen, but if he ran to his Ascot run, it would have. So you normally get two or three of those, like a Min or that drop into that race. So I just think he might find one or two too good. But Banbridge, the key points, fresh, good ground. Stage Star, don't worry the fact he was beaten. Just throw that run in the bin, wait for him to come back next year. Juvenile Hurdle, Zenta, very, very good horse. She was getting the fillies allowance. Bo Zenith has been such a strange horse. The fact he came and he flopped and he's just grown with his racing every time. It's very strange how much he needed to warm to his task. Obviously his form when he obviously beat Blood Destiny in a quicker time than what Lossiemouth did on the same card, showed that he was a good horse, but it's just took him a very long time to find his feet, and he really did obviously come of age here. He might be one for better for next year. Zenta did well to win. I think it's one of those where it depends on your view and opinion. So what I mean by this is the fact that whilst if you're looking for next year, when you get the juveniles, the likes of the Vaubands, they've got to step into open company. So in with the big boys and the big girls, into grade ones, group ones, and race with the top level horses. They normally need to find anywhere from £10 to £20 in order to feature in things like the Mare's Hurdle. A lot of the Mare's Hurdle horses might be anywhere from about 145 to probably about 140 to just over 150. So Zenta would have plenty to find still. Like that was only a 129, the one she ran just then, and it was a 138 before. So as I said, yeah, probably £10-15 to find. I'm not saying she was below form, but I don't know whether she was at the top of her form because she had such a big race in the Triumph. So I wouldn't be quick. I put it this way, to put it simply, I would rather back her for something like the Mare's Hurdle because I know she wants 2 miles. Strong traveller, good jumper, and sorry, that's completely wrong, because the Mare's Hurdle is 2 mile 4 furlongs. So she is not going to be the Mare's Hurdle type, because I think she's going to travel too strong for this sort of event. However, saying that, I look at the other two from the Triumph, and you've got the likes of Galan Marceau and Lossiemouth. And Galan Marceau pulls so hard all the time, and Lossiemouth travelled like an absolute train. And obviously Zenta travelled very well here. Then again, I suppose Zenta could have stretched out. It wasn't like she was hard held keen. But all three of those look fairly keen. So just with a view, if you're looking at these and you're thinking, oh yeah, Lossiemouth 5-1 for the Mare's Hurdle. Me personally, I'll be skipping straight by that because of the fact that I just think you've got to take into consideration they've got that extra 4 furlongs to deal with. So what do we learn from there? Zenta's a very good horse, despite it obviously having her limitations shown perhaps by only just beating Beau Zenith. She still beat a field comprehensively, and again, it's replicating the form 4 weeks later. I think it's very hard to do. She ran £10 below her Cheltenham run, but she still got the job done. Right then, on to the Aintree Bowl. So Shishkin versus Ahoy Senor. Look, I don't want to stand there and knock people, jockeys or anything, and I said this beforehand in the build-up. Brian Hughes is a brilliant jockey, fantastic jockey, and he's a champion jockey in all of the works and everything. And someone obviously took to me on YouTube, and I was expecting it because obviously people are going to opinionate it, and I respect that. I'm not saying that Brian Hughes isn't a good jockey. My view was the fact that at top level, so when it's in Group 1s and Group 2s, for whatever reason, he is just not at the same level as certain other jockeys. So whilst I'm not a person who likes to knock other jockeys and stuff, but I just think that if Ahoy Senor had Derek Fox on or another jockey, like say your Nichols jockeys or your, I'm not going to, I don't want to go through and start bashing people, but basically I just think that on another day with a certain jockey or whatever, they may have held on to him a bit longer, they may have done things slightly different, and they may well have got the better of Shishkin. And that's just my personal view. And it's not, I'm not knocking Brian Hughes. Brian Hughes is a brilliant jockey, he's a champion jockey. And someone come back at me and said to me, yeah, but look at, you're saying that McCoy and Johnson and all of those, that they can't be top Group 1 jockeys, and they could. But that was my point. My point was the fact that AP McCoy and Richard Johnson both rode plenty of Group 1 winners and Group 2 winners and stuff like that. Whereas he's only got one Group 1 win to his name. So that was my view. It wasn't like and it was a concern going into the race, and I do think it was shown here. But anyway, forget about that. Ahoy Senor, one thing we've learned is forget about him for the first part of the season. He seems to be a horse that's like a kid who just forgets he's been to school before, and he takes the season because he's been better every single run as he's gone on. I just think that he's got his limitations exposed in the fact that I wouldn't expect him to beat the likes of a Brave Man's Game, a Galopin Des Champs, all of those likes if they're on form. But he will take Group 1s and he will take other horses when they don't turn up once he's had a few sharpeners to get the ball rolling. So, Ahoy Senor, he's definitely going to have his chances going forward. A Plutard, I said this at the start of the season, I've made my bed with it in the fact that I had a fairly strong bet for the Betfair Chase when it was odds against, good price, went off at silly price, really, really short odds on, and I just saw a nothing race, and I just thought, I can't back that horse until I see something. And it's the old Gold Cup curse. It's what some people have been talking about with Gallopin this last month since he won, in the fact that some horses, they have such, like, it was a mesmerising performance. Like, if I click the link, I think it was about 180, maybe 178, a 183 performance, that Gold Cup. But the issue was that seems to have not ended his career, but just that's it. He's since then he's not run a race since. I mean, you could say this was better than what he'd shown before because he's beaten 16 lengths, well, technically 17 and a half lengths by Group 1 horses, but at the same time, that's just nothing like what he was being. So that was the third disappointing run in a row, and I think for me, the jury's out there. Shishkin quotes a 4 or 5 to 1 for the King George. I'm not going to stand there and say to you he can't win it. Will I have a cover at some point? I don't. I've got no idea. For me, I think the way that the King George is shaped, the way you go round, the fast jumping test, quick nature, sharp track, none of that spells to me Shishkin. However, if the Shishkin that turned up at Aintree, the one that beat Pic Dory 16 lengths, if that turns up, it does not matter where the track is or anything. That horse is a massive player. Like, everyone's seen my post to a Shishkin, and but those were his Arkle days. He is not that same horse. Like, he used to be a keen travel, quick jump. Like, everything was perfection, and it all came so easy to me. Whereas now he seems to be becoming a bit of a wily fox, and he's got things that he likes to do his own way, and you just never know what you're going to get. He goes down to the first. Sometimes he's just like, nah, it's not happening. And I just think that obviously I know a lot of people will say, yeah, he's going to win the King George and stuff like that, but if you give me him or Brave Man's Game on good or good to soft, it's Brave Man's Game for me. Providing Brave Man's Game, because obviously we're yet to see. I was so glad when Brave Man's Game was made a non-runner, because he's here on the list as non-runner. It wasn't how I expected it to go, but I was very pleased because of the fact of how hard a race he's had. He's had quite a busy season, and I'll be equally as happy as if he's a non-runner again for next week for Punchestown, because they still haven't sorted out. Just as long as he comes back next season, we get to see him again. because Nichols is very hungry, and I get that, and he wants to win all these races, but like that horse had an absolute grueler after the Gold Cup. So Shishkin, the jury's out for me in the fact that if you back him, you're rolling a dice each time currently. I think if you get the Ascot Shishkin, could he win the King George? Yeah. Could he get close in a Gold Cup? Yeah, probably could get close in a Gold Cup. But the Shishkin that we're seeing more often than not, like say in 4 of his last 5 runs, he's doing a lot of things on his own mind. He's like, I don't fancy that. Whack. Don't fancy that. Whack. And he just whacked plenty of fences. He gives Nico the hardest ride in the world. Like, he scrambled home. That was a scrambled home. And this is why I put emphasis on the ride on Ahoy Senor, because I think with a slightly different ride, that maybe he would have. But at the same time, Shishkin's had 3 runs in the space of 7 weeks. So if Shishkin turns up in Ascot form, yeah, of course he's a player in something like the King George, and Henderson will obviously have him bang there. But if Brave Man's Game comes back as something like the Charlie Hall Chase, runs the same sort of race as he did before, and then goes to King George, I wouldn't be fearing a horse like Shishkin. I mean, if he wins on the day, I'll just be one of those, clap him home, I got that wrong. But I just think they're just very different horses. Shishkin would be more suited, personally, I think, to something like the Gold Cup. But even then, I don't know if he'd have the pace to keep up with the likes. If they went the pace that they went in the Gold Cup this year with Ahoy Senor, because I think Ahoy Senor on the Gold Cup was, say, 110%, whereas coming to this race, he may have been like 90, 95. He'd had a bad fall. He'd ran 17 fences. So anyway, right, going on and on and on. Short version, Brave Man's Game, glad he had a break. A Plus Tard, you've just got to write him off now. Ahoy Senor, let him have a couple of runs next year and then start backing him for smaller pots when you haven't got the big boys in. Shishkin, just depends which Shishkin we get. Me personally, I'd prefer him fresh and targeted at certain individual races. However, I still am not convinced that Kempton's his track. Obviously, he has won there before, but he doesn't seem like that same horse that's won there in the past. So, on to the Aintree Hurdle, Constitution Hill time. So obviously 2 mile 4 furlongs. What did we really learn from this? Not really a lot. Like, he went out, he bowled along. A lot of people were quite negative on his performance. Me personally, when you run such big performances like he has, like he's not just done it once, he's done it 3 times already. Like, I don't really know what you expect. Like, to back it up 3 weeks later and go out and win by like 50 lengths again, like, I just think they did what they needed to get the job done. Like, in Nico looking around, seeing who's around, was it impressive? I don't know how much was in the tank, to be honest. Do I think 2 mile 4 will be a struggle for him going forward? No, but it's that time of the year where you'll always have that concern, because once a horse has ran to a monster performance once in his season, that will they back it up going forward? And that's the same with obviously like your 2 milers. And then even bigger so with like your 3 milers. Sorry, just going back as well, because that just reminds me of the freshness. I've had plenty of questions about Galloping Deschamps, obviously mentioning about the Gold Cup. Like, Galloping is a very, very young horse. Like, it's not going to be such a, well, I say it's not going to be a concern. Obviously, I won't know until it happens. But Galloping is only a 7-year-old. Like, a lot of Gold Cup horses peak for like, say, 8 or 9-year-olds. So the likes of, say, if put it this way, if he comes out in Punchestown, he hopefully will have quite a small ride. I don't expect Brave Man's Game to turn up. Paul Nicholls has said that he doesn't think the politics will have gone through, so he probably won't be able to, even though he's been entered. But if he doesn't turn up, hopefully he'll have like a school round. And if you see him just run his race, as in win his race, then that's beautiful. Wrap him up, send him away for 8 months, and then when he comes back, I know a lot of horses don't come back from the Gold Cup, so there's never any guarantee. But a horse that's only 7-year-old, there's no different to what he did there than to what he did at the Dublin Racing Festival. If anything, on the eyes, it was a more painful watch at the Dublin Racing Festival than what he did there. He didn't really get involved until the last few furlongs, and then he just showed his magic there. So would I be concerned? No, I wouldn't. Anyway, back to Constitution Hill. The issue was we just didn't learn anything. We knew we weren't going to learn anything, and we didn't learn anything because, okay, he does 2 miles, he does 2 mile 4. We knew that. He could probably have done the Stayers hurdle, and he probably would have won that. It's just like he was probably at about 90% for this, and I can't imagine they would have given him a hard time in between. And he's met even inferior competition. It'd have been more interesting if Stateman had come here, because Stateman didn't really put himself in the race at Cheltenham, so he would have had an easy race there, and he would have come here obviously having not had a hard race. But it is what it is. Constitution Hill is going to be the bane of our lives until we know where he is going, because whichever race he turns up in is likely he's going to be, 1, he'll be favourite, and 2, he's probably going to win. If it's a champion hurdle, he'll win, no doubt. And if it's stuff like the Arkle, Turners or anything like that, it's just going to cause complications for us. Like, we all want to know, because we've got horses like Impere Pass, Stateman, Marine National. All of these horses are going to take top order in these other races, But if you go back into the Arkle market and on a 5 or 6 to 1 shot, and you're like, this is definitely going to win it, and then Henderson comes and says, oh yeah, we're going to run Constitution Hill in the Arkle, you're just like, great, my money's done in like 5 months out. So it's just one of those. You just hope. They've said he's going to be schooling over fences in the next couple of weeks, so we can only hope that maybe they give us an indicator. But the chances are they may well not. They may say, oh, he schooled really well over fences. Are you going to go over fences? Oh, we don't know. So anyway, we go on. Right, let's wrap these a little bit shorter. Fox Hunters, I'm not going to comment on the Fox Hunters. It's one of those races. Sometimes it's a 40 to 1 shot, sometimes it's short price. 9 to 2 shot, famous Claremont. One obviously ran a solid race at Cheltenham. I think finished about 9th at Cheltenham. Nothing spectacular. I'd say the David Christie yard are pretty disappointed with their all of their seasons with regard to the Fox Hunters on the big stage, because they had, obviously at Cheltenham, they had Vorselay as the favourite, very disappointing. They then had Ferns Lock, who was the favourite, who was even more disappointing because he managed to get beaten by Animix and Billaway. And then obviously coming here, they had Winged Leader, who was again the favourite and showed nothing. It's not like they're going down, like come finish a second. So it's unfortunate for them. The Red Rum Handicap, not a lot that I'm going to talk about. It's just like the Grand Annual. The Mayor's National Hunt Race. So this is an interesting one. Obviously, there was a lot of money for the Willie Mullins, Jolly Claire Allen, who did run a good race. I'd imagine if you put them at home, Williamstown Dancer, who actually came third against Jolly Claire Allen, Williamstown Dancer might be the more forward horse now, but I'd imagine come next year, the two horses that finished in the French race, so you got Jolly Claire Allen and who was the other one? Was it Jezebah, who's gone to Henry de Bromhead? No, it wasn't. Who was the other horse? She obviously finished fifth, which wasn't actually too bad a performance considering. Oh, July Flower. So you've got July Flower, who was another import that came across from. In fact, no, that's not. Oh yeah, Fontainebleau. So yeah, they're both French imports. So both getting the weight allowance, but neither of them could lay the glove on a very, very impressive winner. Like I cannot keep doing this to myself and like to people who, if anyone who follows me, and the fact that I forget Fergal O'Brien so often because he mops up all of these hurdles here and there. These mares novice, these bumpers here and there, and then it gets to Cheltenham, and I've got it in my head now, and I do back them at Cheltenham. Like I had Bonte at 22 to 1 and stuff like that in the October-November meeting, but it's so easy to forget them in days like this, and then suddenly bang, they pop up at 8 to 1, and when they win, they don't just win; they win by like half the track. So it's just something that you just really need to keep your eyes out for his runners. So, and that's obviously a mega big player. And the winner of that last year was Ashrow Diamond, who obviously went on, and she didn't win the Mares Hurdle because obviously she skipped it for whatever reason on the Mares Novice Hurdle, but she demolished them at Punchestown. Right then, on to the Friday. Apologies, 2 seconds. Friday. So, Friday, Mildmay Novices Chase. So the Brown Advisory at Aintree. And this was just like a chalk and cheese Jerry Colomb. It was like they knew that they shouldn't have held him up so far back. And they knew exactly how to ride him, keep him prominent. There was cut in the ground, obviously. It was good to soft. But his jumping was just so much better. And a lot of people were like, oh, yeah, if Davy Russell was on like a... But I'm not being funny. Jordan Gainford could have rode that race and he would have won on it because the fact that they'd obviously learnt plenty from Cheltenham and they realised they need to be a lot more prominent. They need to be pushing him from the front, need to be at him all the time because it was like he just was losing concentration and couldn't be bothered. Whereas on this occasion, they knew they needed to be hot on his tail as if to say, keep engaged, almost like having a person creating headgear. It was like, stay involved. And he just jumped well all the way around. Many talking about him as Gold Cup horse. I can't disagree, but at the same time, I'm not strongly agreeing in the fact that he reminds me of Santini. He's a big boat of a horse. He loves the mud, like he loves just ploughing through it. My only concern is like when they got like a faster horse, like the likes of obviously the Real Wacker, who did him for toe. And again, I go back to the Gold Cup. A lot of people, it is a massive staying race. But if you get conditions like you did this year, where it's like on the good side of good to soft, like it is a sharp, fast test. And that may not suit him quite the same way because he likes the softer ground. Same time, mightily impressive. The other knock that I'd have of him is what did he beat here? Like, I mean, Complete Unknown is probably a 150 rated horse. Bron finished behind him in the Brown Advisory, and I think the exertion shown from there. But that wouldn't have been, that was a 50-1 shot. And I thought that he may get closer, but I think that was banking on Jerry's. I thought the race would not be ran how it was. Jerry Colombe was on it from the start. And I think that's how you'll see him for the rest of his going forward. And they've got plenty of race experience into him this season. So I wouldn't write him off in a Gold Cup. He's definitely going to be a player of some sorts. But we'll find out his limitations, because the Irish will be fighting each other sooner rather than later. As soon as it comes to Christmas and they start rolling into races like the Lexus, they'll all be meeting each other, the likes of Gallopin and Jerry Colombs and stuff like that. So you'll know way before Cheltenham who the best of the Irish is, which I'd be pretty confident it's Gallopin Deschamps. But Jerry Colombe, yeah, wouldn't put you off a saver, but I haven't done one myself right now. I just think he was a good horse for that day. I'm not going to go into the handicap. Top novices hurdles. This is interesting. Obviously, Lucia, I don't really know what to make of Lucia. All I'd say is she's clearly not the star that the stable thought she could be. But I'm not to say that she's not a good horse. Like, I know they mentioned about having cut in the ground, 'cause she was quite a small, fragile horse, would be important. But I thought she looked a little bit stuck in the mud again. Once more when they quickened. Like, she was only beaten about 3 lengths here by, obviously, in the pocket, a horse with a lot more experience. But it's hard to tell, to be honest. With regards in the pocket, obviously in the pocket is a horse that's done the tried and tested method. And you look back through in the pockets form, obviously beat 3-card Bragg. And then I hold my hands up and say I thought the horse needed to step up and trip, and they defied me twice. Obviously, in the 2 mile, finishing 6 lengths behind Aintree National. And then again, I said still needs to step up and trip, and obviously they finally got their victory. So what do I know? The thing with in the pocket is consistency. 148, 150, 150. The horse is very, very consistent. So you know exactly what it's going to run. It's not improving, it's just going to run to that level. Where does it go next year? Who knows? It's not going to be easy, like, because you're going to bump into, in my opinion, it doesn't matter Cheltenham, Aintree, Punchestown, Cheltenham form is always king. And like in the pocket, it's got to beat Diverge, who is so inexperienced and still managed to finish ahead. So Diverge will probably go to Punchestown and take a lot of beating in one of those maidens, depending on what bumps into. Facile Vega, who I don't think was 110% on the day, and has still got more to come, but I don't think we'll get the better of the monster. Like, obviously, it's quite clear here, looking through this form line, like Marine National is exactly what Barry Connell said, and is an absolute marine machine. So yeah, in the pocket, Frank the Form, Group 1 in the bag, job done for the yard, massive form boost. I was all over the Ballymore form, but I look at some of the Ballymore form, the likes of the Hermes Allen and stuff, who was sent off, favourite for the Ballymore, and that doesn't look, what's going on here? That doesn't look spectacular anymore. Whereas you look at the likes of, obviously, this with in the pocket, and we'll see later on, the Supreme form's being well advertised. Onto the Marsh Chase. Pretty happy with this, because obviously I put up Pick Dory, but not surprised at all. Like, Fakir Duda is a brilliant horse, and it feels like you're talking about a 10 or 11-year-old just because of how many races he's had. Like, he's had 22 runs over fences, and despite the fact that he's only a 8-year-old, he's had 22 runs over fences and 7 over hurdles. So he's had 30 runs already. Like, this horse is the perfect horse for you to own. Just turns up to the well every time. But I just think he's been off his game this year. And Pick Dory campaigned beautifully all season. And I knew the soft ground wouldn't be an issue just with the Kempton form. And just one more great Nichols performance. Topham, always a tough race. I had the winner of this last year, nowhere near this year. I just think it's a very tough race. It's a bit like the Grand National, but with these are a lot more, not crookedly, but well laid out handicappers. And they're tough to find at the end of the day. Hats off to Connections. So on to a very interesting one. So right, this one is quite interesting. So if you're looking through for next year, obviously everyone, this is what a lot of people missed 2 years ago, is we go back to the Sefton, and the winner of the Sefton 2 years ago was Brave Man's Game, was Ahoy Senor at 66-1, beating Brave Man's Game, who was sent off the 5-4, 6-4 favourite. Brave Man's Game had finished third at Cheltenham, and had won every other start and was looking like a monster. So everyone was just like, oh yeah, okay. Obviously the Aintree form, as I've just said in the last race with Stage Star, just forget it. Obviously Brave Man's Game was over the top sort of thing. And whilst that wasn't wrong, because obviously Brave Man's Game has turned out to be the better horse, Hoy Senor was a massive bet going forwards. As in, I remember putting him up at 40-1 to win next year's Brown Advisory, and Brave Man's Game at 16-1 had they both finished first and second here. So obviously Brave Man's Game had drifted because he'd been beaten, and Ahoy Senor was 40-1 because he'd been sent off such a big price for this race. Now, I've been looking around and seeing what prices you can get and stuff, and you can get. In fact, I will have a quick look now just to see what price. I do believe that you can get. It's not loading anyway. Well, anyway, it's not loading. There was originally 33-1 on Apples Away. Um, am I saying? And that's for the Brown Advisory. So my point for that is the fact that obviously going down the Hoy Senor route was the fact that Lucinda Russell won this in the past 2 years ago, Ahoy Senor, and then obviously she's done it again with Apples Away. And everyone will think, oh, it's a fluke, did it from the front, beat a load of horses that had gone to Cheltenham. Because at the end of the day, that probably part of that is true. Because you look at the front two and it's Apples Away and Maximilian. They're the only two that skipped Cheltenham. Whereas you look further down and you've got like the likes of the Irocco, I'd imagine Stay Away Faye was there. Yeah, Stay Away Faye. So the two Cheltenham winners finished third and fourth. And the first and second were two fresh horses. So it's just trying to find somewhere in between. Have I took the price on the Apples Away at the moment? No, I haven't. If I do decide to take it, obviously I'll put it up and I'll let people know and stuff. The reason I haven't taken it is one, because you don't know whether the horse is going to obviously, well, first things first is one is the fact that it's a mare, so it's not the same as a Hoy Senor. So obviously they've got other options. Obviously this is over 3 miles, but you have got options of like mares chases, mares hurdles, stuff like that. Two is the fact, if the horse is an out and out stayer, do you go 3 miles or do you go 3 miles hurdles for something like the stayers, or do you go 3 miles Brown Advisory? So basically, there's plenty of options. It's not just a couple of options. You're looking at 4 or 5 options. So it doesn't matter if the horse is like 33-1, because if you don't get that right, you're just throwing it in the bin. Which is why I've not said it. I'm just literally speaking out loud. It's just something to note in your mind, that if connections come out in a few days' time and say Apple Away is 100% going here, this is going to be campaigned in this in reverse, and it's like 33-1 or 40-1. I think it's very difficult as well for a mare to win a Brown Advisory, even getting the allowance. Like, you look at how good Impervious was in the Mare's Chase this year, and I know it's over a different trip, but say went into the Turners. Well, actually, the Turners was absolutely awful, so may well have won that. But I just think on a normal year, you'll end up like an Apple Away could end up bumping into like horses that could end up dropping from going in all sorts of different directions. So all I'm saying is I'm trying to give you the heads up, so that if you see news of Apples Away and you think this, and you look at it and it's like Ahoy Senor and it's a 40-50-1 shot, and you think, why not roll the dice with a free bet? Am I going to say go and back it now, and have I backed it at the moment? No. Why? Because we're 11 and a half months out and there's just absolutely no reason. It's just the fact of, don't write it off just because that was the fresh horse. At the same time, the flip side of it is, I do think the horses that you'll be taking out of that race for me are Apple Away, Irocco, and Stay Away Faye. Irocco and Stay Away Faye. Like, once you find out, again, Irocco, the problem is they've got Irocco and they've also got Corbett's Cross, who both obviously are 3 milers. Are they both going to go one stayers, one go to the Brown Advisory? Are they going to go both stayers, both Brown Advisory? At the moment, you're just guessing. And it's not like the bookmakers are giving us loads of leeway here. It's not like you're logging on and Irocco's 50-1 to win one and 50-1 to win the other, so you can roll the dice from the few. Like, generally, nearly all the bets nowadays, even though Irocco was beat, I haven't checked since, but it was about 16s, 20-1, so it's probably going to be at the same sort of price. Whereas if you go back a few years, beaten at Aintree, straight away, scroll through, out to like 40-1. So that's the difference. Me personally, don't back anything in that race currently. However, Apples Away, Irocco, and Stay Away Faye, listen out for news, see what's going on. And if you're getting a half decent price, there may be one to look forward to in the future. I'm not going to go into the handicap hurdle for amateurs. So that just leads us on to the big day, this Saturday. Right then, on to the Maghull Novice Chase, which is obviously the 2 mile novice hurdle, which is basically the Arkle at Aintree. Um, Again, I don't like knocking jockeys, but if you had the connections, if you were the connections in the Skelton camp of the second place horse, which was Calico, like you would be losing your mind the way that he gunned that horse into the either the second last or the last. Like they had their cat and mouse bit where he gave it a good rattle, but once John Bond scooted clear, you've got to think just have a breather, let the red rush go out of your head, go blue, coast this home, and let's just take the prize money. Because I mean, your prize money for that day, second place was 27 grand. Like I don't know what Calico would have to win. Like probably win a half decent Saturday handicap to get that sort of money. 27 grand, and he was completely booked for it because the horse that actually finished second in the end finished 43 lengths back, Marvel to Cerisi. So, what did we learn here from John Bon? I think there's a few things for me that I think with John Bon. One is, as I said after Cheltenham, John Bon is what I call a nearly horse. A bit like, well, no, I'm not going to. He's not going to get the gratitude of what a Min is because a Min was top level nearly horse. In the fact that if Altior wasn't there, Min took that race each time, whether 2 miles or 2 mile 4. I think John Bon at Cheltenham will always find one too good. So I know a lot of people say put him in the Ryanair next year and stuff like that. And okay, yeah, he probably is a player in the Ryanair. Like obviously, if you said to me John Bon or Banbridge, I think John Bon is got the better chance. His time's come back good for this. His sectional's come back good for this. I think something that's important to John Bon is that bit of faster ground. Like he seems to get stuck in the mud a bit against Al Fabiolo. Like it's not that it was like slowing him down in any sort of way, but he's very nifty. He's very nimble. He's very fast at his fences, and I just think the faster the ground, the better this horse's chances are. Do I think if him and Al Fabiolo, if he skipped this and he met Al Fabiolo at Aintree next week instead, would there be a different result? No, I don't. But I just think that it might have been closer. I just think he needs a bit of a set of circumstances. And I'm not really sure what happened because John Bond started his first two races of the season. He was electric over fences. He was perfect, beating Mon Morale and stuff. I know they're not brilliant horses. Then he had that little break in the middle for about 6 weeks, 2 months. And he came back and he raced Calico and he was so rusty. It was bad. And then obviously he went on to the Arkle and he finished second, but that's just a credit of the horse. I just don't think that was his best. Like I think he was better here. I haven't checked the numbers. I imagine he probably is better. Oh no, he ran the exact same numbers, so a 164 and a 164 twice. But like as in he ran a 164. To put that into context, El Fabiolo ran to a 172 when he put 5.5 lengths, and obviously El Fabiolo is still making mistakes. So that's my point. I just think John Bond, brilliant horse, and again, if I can get it up working, which probably not. I don't know what's going on with Odds Checker, but I'm just trying to find the price he is for the Ryanair or Cheltenham Festival. No, it's not working. I know he's about 8 to 1, I think. So does he have his chance? Yeah, of course he does. Could I be standing here in 6, 7 months' time saying John Bond's a bet for the Ryanair? Maybe when I start going through it all. But at the moment, I just think he could be a horse that always finds one too good. Obviously, he bumped into Constitution Hill, and everyone was saying bumped into the freak of a lifetime. That's the only reason he lost. But then he's done it again with El Fabiolo, who he'd beaten previously. El Fabiolo's clearly improving leaps and bounds, but I'm just saying, like his limitations may be exposed. Be interested to see how they campaign him. Like people talking about the King George and all sorts, and I can't see that. I think he'll be campaigned probably with the Ryanair in mind. Right then, on to the handicap. Not going to cover this, but Dan Skelton, frustrating one for me because I followed a lot of the handicap hurdles and fences chasers, and I skipped over this one because I just thought Good Time Johnny was too well handicapped. Good Time Johnny is still incredibly well handicapped, and let's have a look there. 147, and he's remained on his same mark, so he's going off 147. Like that horse, if he runs, well, he's probably not going to run again this season, but he's still incredibly well handicapped. His ride here from Liam McKenna wasn't any better than the ride he got at Cheltenham. Liam McKenna just got away with one in the fact that everything dropped right to allow him to squeeze the gaps and get through. He was way too far out the back. He got stuck in pockets. He got clattered. He didn't get the jump. And to only finish looking at 6 lengths off the winner, who had the perfect clean run all the way through. Do I think he would have got to the winner? No, probably not. But I think he would have easily been booked for second. I know, obviously, each way it doesn't really make any odds whether it's first or fourth, but it's just my view. West Balboa, interested to see where they go. I can easily see this being their next, like Roxana or who's their most recent one? Well, they turn them over anyway. Basically, they know how to train a mare's hurdler. So it wouldn't surprise me if West Balboa went down the mare's hurdle route, because I'd imagine she's probably took a clattering for that from the handicapper. Was rated 135, only £7. Interesting. Only £7, and it was 5 lengths back to second place. It was 50 to 1 shot. I mean, this is what people have been saying about the English handicapper being nice to English horses. £7 does not look too bad whatsoever, considering obviously. Interesting. Maybe they might roll the dice, but maybe Mares Hurdle would be a potential. So this is what I'm trying to say is that obviously the likes of, you've got her running to 143, and that's the sort of company that the likes of Azenta, a Lossymouth, all of those are going to be coming out into. Like obviously this is an improving horse clearly, and that was only her fifth start over hurdles, and she's running to a 143, with more to come. And obviously, so the likes of Azenta and stuff like that, they need to be up in their game. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But it's no fall on hope. Like if you're looking at the likes of a 5 to 1 shot like Lossymouth, you maybe need to think a little bit outside of the box at the likes of like West Balboas or Zentas, or just a little bit more creative. Not to say they can't win. I'll hold my hands up at that. Not to say, but the other thing is with a lot of juveniles, they do struggle to make the jump. Look at Vauban this year. Mersey Novices Hurdle. So this is me going back to Marine the Machine. Irish Point wins it. Let's click on Irish Point's form. I already know what was coming up. 2 seconds in Group 1 races. First one behind Marine National, second one behind Champ Kylie. The form was there, rock solid form. Absolute no-show when behind Elite Tomp at the DRF. Bounced back with an egg and spoon race, and then came here fresh, stepped up and tripped 2 mile 4 furlongs. Lastly beaten by Champ Kylie over 2 mile 4 furlongs in quite a dodgy race. Just showed his Irish form. I mean, that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th run of the year, and just showed this is how good I am. Obviously improved on the day, but only £3 more than when second to Champ Kylie, 2 1/4 lengths. So clearly a very good horse. Likely looking at the trip, when you look at the 2 career bests, both being over 2 mile 4, you'd say this horse is going to be crying out for 2 mile 4 or potentially further. Travelled so well into the race, just one going away. Hermes Allen, I had my doubts going into the race. I did mention about the fact that I just think Nichols, once they're not so much done for the race, but sometimes when they like ran a little bit below par, you don't see them bounce back and fly in at this time of year, just because of the fact that he doesn't want to overdo them, sort of thing. Like as in, these are like his brave man's games. He wants them as 3 mile big chasers, and Hermes Allen will bounce back. I think limitations might be slightly exposed in the fact that maybe he's not the horse we once thought he could be, or in the Challow, but a little bit of fresh ground, a little bit of fresh time off the track, comes back in the winter. I'm sure he'll take 2 or 3 novice chases easily, before he bumps into anything of real note. I'd imagine he'll probably go to the Corto Star, which obviously Nichols won with Brave Man's game, on Boxing Day, and he'll take some beating there. And obviously he could end up running into his own stablemate, Stay Away Faye, over 3 miles. Let's be clear about it. I actually put this horse up as a selection, and ran a really good race, finishing 4th. Left me a little bit puzzled because I thought he travelled like the wrath of God and looked the most likely winner, in the Albert Bartlett. And then coming down the hill, just disappeared out of it, and Stay Away Faye and the others stayed on and went away. And he only finished 5 lengths behind. And then it was like an exact same again over the 2 mile 4 behind Irish Point. Irish Point was travelling. To be fair, Irish Point was getting the perfect toe from this horse. So unfortunately, Irish Point was almost taking the mickey out of him because he was just travelling on his tail saying, take me as far as you can. But this horse travelled overly well, coming into the race. Came into the bend. I was like swinging off the bit still. But then when the button got pushed, it was just like others just found more and they pulled away. Ended up beating 13 lengths. Like, it's really hard to know where to go with this horse because I thought that it was the trip that was beating him. Maybe he goes back to 2 miles. I don't know. I think this horse has definitely got wins still in him. That's for sure. But obviously these are Group 1s as well. 4th in 2 of the biggest Group 1s of the year. That's no great shakes. So, but I definitely keep Let's Be Clear about it in your notebook, because in a lower key Group 1 or a Grade 2, you could still go off double figures, and it's definitely got one of these in them. On to the Liverpool hurdle. Oh my. So obviously we've got how do we sum this up? Flooring Porter, I think, ran a very similar race to last year. You can't say he's regressed or whatever. Like he had a brilliant couple of years and he's just been dethroned. Like he's not running like really badly, but he's just horses are improving. Cider Burley is just a monster. Off the bridle from the back, 199 to 1 in running, nowhere to be seen, and comes through and wins. Marie's Rock is the one to take out of the race, though. Marie's Rock is very interesting. I think there's a few things of consideration. One is the fact, do you step the horse back down to the 2 mile 4? Because if you bring her back down to the 2 mile 4 to the mare's hurdle route, like she was still hacking on the bridle, and maybe she didn't stay with Cider Burley. Or is it the fact that it was her first run at 3 miles? She had a bit of a dodgy prep after a poor run at Cheltenham. Who knows? Could she still get 3 miles? Yeah, potentially. But like her beating of Dashel Drasher is obviously solid form. Her form here is not bad, but I know obviously Nico, the jump got put on Nico by him not expecting it. But at the same time, it's hard to know whether she stayed or not. It would be interesting to see what the jockey says going forward. But this is one of those where I'm saying about thinking outside the box. Because if they said, oh, we're not sure what we're going to do with it, and basically come October, November time, if you see her entered up around 2 mile 4 furlongs, like I'd be thinking, okay, 16 to 1 for the mare's hurdle, a race that she was sent off 5 to 2 favourite for. Like, this is my bet. And that's what I'm thinking. The likes of a Marie's Rock against the likes of a Lossiemouth, where you know Marie's Rock will get the 2 mile 4, one at Punchestown, one at Cheltenham in the Mare's Novice, had a strange campaign this year. Last year they won everything and was campaign to perfection. This year's been a bit all over the place. So that's just my view. I just think you can't dive into either of them yet, but I think she could be a player definitely at the festival in one of those two events. It would just be interesting to see whether they persevere with 3 miles and the fact that maybe she just got caught because it was her first time at it. And obviously Cider Burley probably won't be there because he's about 50 years old. The other side of it, so technically you finished second to a Stayers Hurdle winner who, if you obviously took him out of it, you've bolted up here because you'd have won by 6.5 lengths. And everyone would be saying, back her for the Mare's Hurdle, she'll be about 4 to 1 now. So if Cider Burley retires, you're like, okay, well, look how she literally beat the rest of them on the bridle. I know all of them had a hard race at Cheltenham. So she's one you've got to have in your notebook and got to have your ears open because they're big prices. 16 to 1 for the mares, and I don't know what her price is for the Stayers, probably 33s or something. So you've got to be eyes about. But I haven't backed anything. Again, these are all just my thoughts so that if you see news, if you hear anything, nothing I've said, obviously I say when I put bets up and I haven't put any up. Anyway, on to the handicap chase. So the handicap chase, Midnight River. I had this horse, Skelton, handicap chaser, bang, bang, bang. Job's a good one. On to the Grand National. So I've already pretty much covered everything. There's not a lot more I could say to change too much all in all. Looking through, so Vanilla got put up £5 for that run. Vanilla was always going to be that dark danger horse for me, just because I knew that if he finally put his jumping together, he could go well. Gallia de Mesnil ran a lot better than I thought. I thought because of how hard his race was at Cheltenham, and it would make me think if he hadn't had that race at Cheltenham, would he have gone closer here? But I don't know. Either way, I don't see a way you could run that race 10 times and bar incident. I don't see a way where the winner doesn't win. Unfortunately for him, obviously he's now up £13. He got £3 for Saturday's run, and obviously he'd already been put up £10 for his win in the Ultima. So many will be saying, well, can he do it again next year? And me personally, with £13 on his back, I would say it's not out of the question. I just think obviously it'd be much more, it would be harder. And the way I'm going to look at it now is I'm going to have a quick look while everyone's on still. Let's have a look and see what Tiger Roll got put up after his first national. So Tiger won it off 163 and then got... No, that's not right. That was his RPR. So he won it off 150. And then the year after he won it off 159. Jesus. Flipping, what was the handicapper thinking? Gave him £9 despite winning 15 cross countries in between. So yeah, it's going to be a lot harder for him, obviously, because he's now going to be going off 1.5. Well, he's now on the same mark. He's on 159, so he is on the same mark as what Tiger Roll was on when Tiger won it, I believe, for a second time. Yes, so he is on the same mark as what Tiger Roll won it on, a mark of 159, and Tiger Roll had to achieve a 174 to beat Magic of Light that day. Corach Rambler ran to a 160, so he has got quite a bit to find. However, there is absolutely nothing to say he can't. He is a 9-year-old, He won't be 10th of April, so he'll be 10 just before next year's national, which isn't bad. There's no such bad things. He's 20-1 at the moment. Of course, I had a bit of a bet on him, just because a small bet, because obviously it was so good this year. But obviously, there's a reason why the likes of Red Rum and Tiger Roll and stuff are so legacy. However, here is my thought process that no one has mentioned, no one will mention. It won't be on the reviews, because most of the reviews you listen to, all they talk about is the politics of what happened before the national with the protesters, but that's not what we're here for. So this is my theory, my plea to Lucinda Russell. Obviously, I don't know Lucinda to tell her this, but my theory is, everyone is already talking about, oh, could this be a Gold Cup horse? Where can this horse go? Maybe they should go for Group 1s. Maybe you should do that. You could do all of that. Totally appreciate that. Wouldn't blame Connect for trying. At the same time, as I've just said, this horse is already a 9-year-old. So whilst he is not improving, well, he is technically improving because he's ran 2 career bests, 160 RPRs. My thought process would be, why not go a very similar route? So running like things like the Coral Gold Cup, hopefully lose a few pounds. So finishing a bit like last year, maybe 5th or 6th, dropped a pound here, £2 there, and bring you down a bit. Of course, they could go to the Ultima again and be off at least £10 higher, maybe more. Could go close in that race. However, a race that not one single person has mentioned across Twitter, ITV, any racing anywhere, is, why not do the obvious? Go to the cross country. It is the biggest loophole around right now. This horse, who's clearly an improving horse that can run to like 160 RPRs and stuff like that, and is clearly a very, very high level horse, if you're worried about the fact that now you suddenly can't go because of your weight, you can't go and run in certain races and handicaps, go to the cross country. Whether it's because you're prepping for the national, or whether it's because you want that to be your target race. Don't get me wrong, you're going to bump into the likes of a Galvin and a Delta Work, and obviously you'll be off level weights against those sort of horses. And you look at the RPRs that Delta Work achieved. Obviously, you achieved 169, so off £9 higher this year. Can't even see the Galvin pull up. No, unseated the rider. So obviously you would be going in against the big boys, but at the same time, if you want a nice smooth prep, so you really want to go outside the box and you want a nice smooth prep, because it seems to take them in nicely. If the national was the plan, which I'm not 100% sure, it might not be the plan. I don't know what they're going to do, but my thought process is, why not go for your handicaps, try and knock a few pounds off, try and get yourself down to maybe, I don't know, £6 to £8 higher, then go for the cross country, take on some of the wily old foxes, probably the likes of a Galvin or a Delta Work, if Delta Work hasn't retired by then. And yeah, okay, they off levels, they might end up being better than you, but I just think it's not that hard a race. And at the same time, he clearly took to the fences like a duck to water around Aintree, and I think they're very similar, the test and the obstacles and stuff. So most people will be shouting at their screen saying you're an idiot, and that is completely bonkers. But I just think it's a loophole race right now. Like, I mean, if Willie Mullins really wanted to, he could have ran Galloping des Champs in the cross country and just laughed at him and just gone, yeah, I'm going to train him for this, and then raced him in there and took the Cheltenham win there. Like, there is no limitation to the Gold Cup, so you're getting Group 1 horses running in the Gold Cup, and at the same time, it was the perfect prep for Tiger Roll. And if you're a horse that's going too high up in the handicap and you're going to struggle in handicaps, the weights will already be out by then. So it's the perfect race to run in. You don't have to worry about your handicap mark. But the issue is that there might be. I think the trainers are cottoning onto this. Like, Franco de Port was well beaten in the end, but was backed in from double figures for Willie Mullins. So I don't think it's going to be long before Mullins starts campaigning a couple of this as well. So that's my backwards thought, is the fact, go to the Coral Gold Cup, go to handicaps, do the things that obviously other connections didn't with the likes of Tiger. Try and get that mark down a bit. Because I think if you're on a mark around the £6 to £8 higher mark rather than 13, then going into the national, then he would have every chance. Like, don't get me wrong, a lot of people say, oh, would he? I think he would have definitely won the national still with £6 on his back this year. I just think a lot's going to come down to the ride, the timing of the delivery and when he's going to idle and stuff like that. Am I standing here telling you he's going to win the Grand National next year? No, he's probably not. But at the same time, in order to try and get you the best opportunity, I think you knock those marks down. But at the end of the day, it just depends on your horse. You've got connections and stuff. If you want to roll the dice, like, look at what Noble Yates got. Like, I think he got, was it maybe 4th in a Gold Cup, He got a Group 1 or Group 2 win at Aintree. He's had such a good year. So obviously, yeah, okay. And he finished fourth in a Grand National off £19 higher. So at the end of the day, it's just how they end up campaigning. But for me, I think the cross country is not a bad prep. One, for obviously the smoothness taking you in, but if you haven't managed to get your weights down, you're going to struggle anyway by the time you get there. Because if he hasn't got, if he's £10 or higher, then I think he's going to struggle regardless. Just not because of the horse. He could obviously improve £10, but I just think it makes it so difficult. And obviously all the stats that were in his favour last year will then start going the opposite way to not be in his favour next year. So anyway, on to the final, the finale, and I'm not going to go into that because that's just a bumper. So yeah, that's brilliant. Everything for Aintree Grand National. I hope that helped, or if you found anything. Obviously, we go to Punchestown on Tuesday. I think it is Tuesday through to Sunday. So I don't do a Cheltenham. I don't do a Punchestown blog just because obviously the racing is so frantic. You cannot physically keep up putting a thing up every. But I will have selections, obviously daily selections up, either in the morning or whatever. There won't be for every race because it's like 7 races a day through 5 or 6 days of racing. And much like Aintree, there'll be form turned over, there'll be form out the window. So it's one way you get your notepad and try and back horses prior to obviously them winning here for the next year's festival. So I will have selections. I will put a video out on Sunday with early thoughts because they should hopefully have a few entries out there and a few markets. At the moment, we've just got the likes of like Galloping Des Champs and stuff. So, and I won't be telling you anything you don't already know. So I will put those up. I will have, what day are we on? It's Thursday today. I will have a few selections up on Saturday for things like air. A big thank you for everyone. Obviously, I got so many messages. My DMs have been open where we started the new Patreon, and I've had loads of messages from people saying stuff like, "I've been following you since you had 500 followers. Thank you for this," and I really appreciate that. And obviously, we did mention about the fact of starting the early bird paid subscription, and I've not had a single negative comment. Every person who is either they've decided to sign up or not sign up, all of them have been so positive about it. So really appreciate all of that. The only thing I will go into is the fact that I'm just going to quickly mention the sign up because of the fact that quite a few people are still messaging me struggling. Right, so this is my Twitter profile. As you can see here, it's not actually the clearest. I'll try and bring the computer a little bit closer. If you go to here, I don't know if you can see that. There's my cursor there. There's a blue marking and it says Patreon, R4 Algo Academy. You click here, yes, I am 18 or older. And that's how you get on. And all you do is you click the link, you go to join, and the biggest question is that everyone's been asking is the fact of how do they then get into the Discord group? The Discord group, as soon as you click that link, there's a link in there for the Discord group. You click it and it takes you through. I am going to do a separate video to this to explain how the Discord works. A lot of people thought it was going to be very difficult, but in my opinion, it's just like a better version of WhatsApp. It's so simple. Like this, I've got 3 channels in there. I've got an Antepost Cheltenham 2024, Antepost flat channel, and I've got a flat selections for the thing. There's a Algo Trades channel and there's an NTN Trades channel because obviously there's 3 of us operating, putting out all selections and content that we can. We've had a few winners this week. As I've said before, I will put my content and everything will still come onto Twitter, and it will be no slower. It'll be no different to how it has been in the past on Twitter and YouTube. The only difference is I'm trying to bend over backwards to get it to these guys first because obviously they've paid £7.50 a month in order to be part of the early bird subscription. So like they've got a selection for Saturday already. But all my selections and content will still be out on the weekend. But obviously, I've got no idea what the price will be for any of them by then. So if you haven't signed up and you still want to, there's the link. If not, then perfect. I appreciate all the support. Hope everyone had a great Aintree and roll on Punchestown. Hopefully, we can get some big winners. Well, probably won't be big prices, but hopefully, we can get some sort of value before they run ready for the Cheltenham Festival 2024. So thank you very much and enjoy your weekend.